All right, we are live. Happy Thursday. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer break, their time with their families, and I hope that everyone is doing some traveling right now. We have an amazing guest today, two amazing people, Anna and Zach, and I'm so excited for them to be able to share their story. I've known Anna and Zach now for over a year and maybe 2 years now, and I've never known they lived in all these different countries. But what I do know is that they have been helping the Black in Portugal community move to Portugal and helping many other people that want to relocate to Panama and Costa Rica. So I know that there was also a little error with the link that was sent out. So there are about 8 or 9 people in the queue. So if you are in the queue to be brought on stage, please look at the private chat. And there is a link there that you can click to watch via YouTube. And I'm going to put that link again right here. And I'm going to remove some people because I keep getting a notification. So I hope that you're able to see this. And Ray H, Cameron, Peter, I am going to be removing you all, and I hope that you are able to access this live from the YouTube. So without further ado, I am going to bring Anna and Zach on to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hey, Heather.
How are you?
We're doing great. It's good to see you today.
I know it's been so long, over a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know. And the last time you guys were here, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Yes. So how is Costa Rica treating you all?
It's great right now. I mean, we're, instead of the hot summer weather, it's kind of a little bit rainy and cool, but we love that. And by rainy and cool, I mean 70 degrees. So it's
is
nice.
Cold for us now.
It's
nice.
Nice.
When you get used to 85, when it's 70, you're under a blanket with a sweater.
Yeah.
Yes. Right now, Portugal is blazing hot. South of Europe is blazing hot. Yeah. And it's not too fun to be outside right now. So being indoors is where I would like to be. And at nighttime, venturing out when it's much cooler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But please introduce yourself. Sorry, I just hopped into Costa Rica.
The link issue was my fault. Everybody on our mailing list, I'm sorry, I sent the wrong link. There is a YouTube live link in the chat of this call, so please join us via that method.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Anna, and
this is Zach. I'm sorry.
And we're the co-founders of StartAbroad, a full-service international relocation company.
We're both from the U.S. We both lived abroad for more than 10 years, and each have lived in 6 different countries. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of experience with the expat.
And we are excited to talk to you guys kind of both about our personal story and how we got where we are now, and then also a little bit more about our professional story and how we help people move.
Okay, this is going to be a really good and interesting story for you guys. So can you share a little bit about your backgrounds and what led you to your journey as long-term expats?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, I think we each, moved abroad when we were quite young, shortly after college, right after undergrad. So my first job was in the UK, actually, as a teacher. Zach did the Peace Corps. And then from there, we continued and both got into international development as a career.
We both were fortunate enough to travel abroad when we were younger. And I think that instilled in us a love of doing it, and also a realization that we were in a very fortunate position and we wanted to dedicate ourselves to, giving back. And so my personal mission was to empower people to empower themselves. And that led to doing the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic after college. And then that kind of one thing led to another. And here we are, 20 years later.
We actually met working in Kenya for the same large international NGO, and just kind of kept going from there, whether it was for work or for personal reasons.
Okay. And how was your time in Kenya? from a work perspective?
It was great. I mean, I think it's the type of thing where you develop a life in a new country and you just realize how I kind of felt like I found my people when I started this job in Kenya. People who cared about a lot of the same things that I did and were really passionate about that. So I lived in Kenya for 5 years actually, and really loved it.
I went to grad school for international development, and then out of international development, I went to work for the company that Anna was a big boss at, and I was hired as a lowly associate, and she actually did one of my interviews, and maybe took advantage of the power dynamic.
No,
but
not at all.
Kenya's. I mean, East Africa is an amazing place. Very different from the U.S. and other places I had lived, and just a wonderful place to be for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I took from this is that you were dating your boss, and then
I was not his boss. So to be clear, I was not his boss. I was the director of HR, so I was technically involved in all of the interviews, but I was not his boss.
She did my second round interview. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I should mention it was.
She made me turn off the camera.
It was on Skype.
She couldn't focus.
It's not true.
See, love can find you in the most unexpected places, and outside of America. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, how have your experiences, such as in Kenya and the other countries, influenced your perspective on global living?
Yeah. Well, I think that when you are living in the United States for your whole life, which was the case for us, before leaving undergrad, you kind of just assume that's the way things are. You assume that that's what life looks like. And sometimes, when you are able to get a fresh perspective and get a different lens on things, you just realize how different anything can be, really. Culture, society, just the way people relate to one another. And there are, it looks different in every country, in every culture, but there are parts of that can be a much better fit, actually, or more comfortable. So I think we both realized that pretty early on in our international journeys.
I became a big believer in cultural fit. I think, as Anna mentioned, when you have only ever really lived in the US, that's just how it is. And then you go other places and you experience other things and connect with people differently. And you're like, oh, actually, this feels more like home. Just because you're kind of from the US doesn't mean it's like kind of a cultural home. And so there's places that I've lived where I'm like, this is kind of where I belong. And, I felt that way in Portugal. I felt that way in Costa Rica. I felt that, and I think for a lot of people, before you've done it, the idea of moving to another country, there's going to be a lot of these reasons why it feels like you can't. But it actually might be, if you can overcome some of those hurdles, it can actually just be more of a home for you in different places. So,
yes, I do agree. I feel like I've lived abroad three times now. I guess 3 countries: Japan, Mexico, and Portugal now. And it's just a different feeling of the relationships and the friendships that you make with people, with the locals, how your day-to-day life differs than in the US, and how I'm finding that in other countries, they're not as materialistic as Americans are, having like the nicest car, the fanciest house, the newest shoes, all these big name brands just to show like you have money. I feel like that has not been the same. So it really has changed my perspective to appreciate, just the smaller things in life. Like, I don't need to have a car. I don't need to have Louis Vuitton shoes or all these things. Yes, they're nice to have, people that want them, should go out and get them, but it doesn't determine, who I am as a person as far as having all these things. Because most people outside of America don't live life like this, to the materialistic life like we are in America.
Absolutely. And I would say, so I was talking about the cultural fit and materialism and how you connect with people and importance of family and things like that. There's also kind of logistical reasons that I think it makes sense for a lot of people to move abroad. So access to medical care, affordable medical care, being able to afford a home, if you're retiring, making your money go further in your retirement. And there's options out there. That's the U.S. is wonderful for a lot of reasons, but it's also very difficult for a lot of reasons. And knowing that you have options and there's going to be a fit for you, that's going to provide like opportunities in different ways.
And maybe just like a small anecdote about that. We have a baby here who was born in Costa Rica.
8 months old.
Yeah,
already running the house.
Currently 8 months old.
Just the little boss.
And one of the things I just loved about being pregnant and having her as a baby here is that, I mean, I walked into any grocery store, any bank, anything. People saw that I was pregnant and they were like, oh, can I help you? Oh, like, let me carry that for you. Oh, you don't need to take that. I walk into the store with my baby, holding her in my arms, and people say like, oh, do you need help? Do you need me to hold her? Like, I'm happy to. Oh, I would love to. It's just like this culture of like celebrating, I don't know, support for mothers, which is amazing.
Yeah. It's a different mindset, but real quick before we continue, we have 22 amazing people joining us. Please let us know where you are joining from. I know that Girl Be Gone Phyllis A finally made it over to the YouTube channel.
Thank you,
Phyllis. Sorry.
Yes, please let us know where you're from so we can give you a shout out. But going back to what you were saying, yes, I find that people treat outside of America, I've seen it more often that they're more kinder. They're more like willing to go out their way to accommodate you. Even the elderly people, they're more like, okay, we need to take care of these people because they're either old or they might have like a disability. I've seen a lot of people that have like an eye disability, maybe blind. I'm not sure if they have the blind stick or the walking stick. And I've seen people stop and make sure they got onto the bus okay, make sure they sat down. And like, I won't say like this does not happen in America, but I will say I've seen it more times living abroad than I have ever seen in America. And
it's the idea of like community.
Yeah.
Right?
Tighter bonds.
Supporting.
Tighter social bonds. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And it's something so beautiful. It's that the care and empathy and compassion for another person. And I know like we're not perfect as humans, but just being able to assist, can make someone's day, and being pregnant, I have a kid, you guys know that. And when I was pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't have anyone to help me at the time. My husband at the time, he was deployed. So I had to move by myself. I had to learn to drive stick by myself and grocery shop. And I was like this big old pregnant lady. And like, no one really helped me at all. I struggled, to take care of myself. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. It's just a blessing to see that there are people out there that are willing to let you cut the line or help you carry your bags or anything like that.
Yeah.
There are a few people that are coming in. Jessica from Alabama. Okay, Jessica. Or Jesse. Debbie is an expat living in Portugal. Angel. Can you guys see the comments too? Do you guys see them? Really? You can't see the comments?
Yeah, we're on
present. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Davey Day, thank you for converting over. Gary from New York City. Patrick, from Minneapolis. Terry from Cibolo, Texas. Lynette from San Diego. Yvonne from Virginia Beach. She just got home from a 90-day trip to Lisbon, Portugal.
That's not even a trip. That's
that's like a little sabbatical. Natasha joining in from Kentucky. Okay. And Kajiza, I'm so bad. I'm butchering your name, but we will answer your question. Come back to your question. Peter from Minneapolis and Phyllis. So there's a lot of people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's continue moving on. So Anna, this question is for you. With you. With your experience with international HR and leading large teams, how did you transition to helping others relocate globally?
Yeah, so I really started in terms of my HR relocation, helping folks move for work, right? So I was helping mostly people from the United States, from Europe, move down to Kenya, like we were talking about, where we were working for this large NGO, or other countries in East and Southern Africa. And then also working for a tech company to move. We had employees across like more than 20 countries, moving all over the world. And from that, I think there were two things I really learned about. One was the logistics of it all. There's a lot of, bureaucracy to manage, as I imagine anyone who has done an international move is well aware of.
Yes.
And then there's also I'd say the more emotional side of things. It's just a difficult transition to go through, as exciting as it is. So how do you make sure that someone feels comfortable, that they are able to navigate the ups and downs that are going to happen no matter how great it goes? And then, with those kind of two realizations of like, oh, this is maybe harder actually than people initially realize when they're thinking about making a big international move. And also realizing that, okay, this type of support, this type of all-encompassing support exists for employees at global firms or companies, but not really so much for individuals who are moving. That's, a big part of the motivation to start abroad and see how we can provide people who are retiring or, digital nomading.
Yes, I find that very interesting. I've never thought about it in that manner, how, I've always heard about people that work for these big companies or governments. I mean, even myself moving abroad, everything is, we just have to sign a paper, make sure we contact this person, and they handle everything for us. But I think that there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of pieces to the puzzle that people that don't have this type of support miss out on, or they're not aware of. Yes, you can get a visa. However, you need to do these 15 steps in within this to get your visa. Or yes, you can move abroad, but also did you know, you need to look into this information and that information. And I think as Americans, we move all the time. We move from state to state, city to city, and it's just, okay, I'm going to move. I move, I find an apartment, and then I navigate everything. Yes, but it's not like that when you move abroad. And the bureaucracy is like off the Richter. It's crazy sometimes, because even here in Portugal, I've had to learn patience. And I know you guys help a lot of people come to Portugal, and you understand our frustrations when trying to get anything done. Prime example, my mom and her visa application, which was horrible. At the end, having to do it over again, and her finally getting it, but just the communication, going back and forth. And although I submitted everything right the first time, it's just where does the patience come from? How do you navigate these things? And if you try to compare it to the US, just like the US is very black and white. If you call someone, they have a policy, and the policy is going to be the same at any time you call. In Portugal and other countries, it depends on what day of the week. It depends who you talk to, and nothing is ever written in black and white. So being able to have something in place, having a service in place where they can navigate this stuff for you, can give you less of a headache, and you can focus on other things as you are planning your move abroad.
Well, look even at the VFS offices, so that's the immigration's official partner to process your applications. They all have different rules. They will reject you for literally no reason. And so just kind of understanding that it's not your fault, but like you've still got to navigate it.
So, I mean, and a lot of this like patience side of things is because, there are pluses and there are minuses to some of like the cultural differences that we're talking about. And when a lot is based on like community and relationships, that's wonderful. And then sometimes also your experience at the IMA appointment is based on relationships instead of on clear rules. So it can really help to have someone in your corner who understands that.
Right.
Yes. And sometimes I know people are just like, well, I don't want to pay money. And I'm just like, look, it's easier sometimes just to pay the people money to handle your headache. So you don't have to handle it, because clearly they want to do this. They want to help people, and they have other resources and local connections that most of the time, the average person does not have when they're moving to a new country.
And that absolutely. And there, another way to think about it is it actually saves you money in the long term. So you don't have to submit your application twice. So you aren't losing more months on your rental.
Yeah.
Or just, some sleepless nights.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about if your time is worth $50 an hour, how much time
Yeah.
are you going to sink into just trying to figure it out and pull your hair out because there's good information online, but there's bad information online, and then you might do it wrong. So that's how
Yeah.
we think about
And a lot of misinformation. And what worked for me yesterday may not work for you today.
They're changing
So
all the time, and they don't really tell you about it.
nope. And they're not on the same page. Each office,
Yeah.
they're not talking to each other. And this is where the frustration comes back. Because I'm just like, we're America, if they would have been on it, you go to a little website, you can get an answer, you can call, you can email, but half the time they don't even pick up their phones. So having a service provider that can do all of this for you is really great. Even myself, when I moved to Portugal with my daughter 3 years ago, and we had our staff appointments, which is now AIMA. And I don't know who did these appointments. I don't know what they were thinking. Our birth dates are clearly listed on our visa. They put us for the same day, same time. Mine was 3 hours away up north, and Mackenzie's was in Lisbon.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why would do I take the risk and just go to her appointment or bring her to mine? So I ended up paying a woman. She called for 3 days for me. At the time, she was charging 40 euros. She called for 3 days. She would send me like daily updates, and she was able to get my appointment rescheduled, which was great. Well, our appointment's rescheduled to Cascais, which is way closer than the 3 hour away one. But this saved me time and energy because I said, I just got to Portugal. I do not speak Portuguese. Even if I tried to speak Portuguese through the app, I'm not going to know what they're saying back to me on the phone. So this is why having a service provider can go a long way for you. Yes. So Zach, this question is for you now.
Great.
You did the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic and managed development programs in East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What did that work teach you about building teams abroad and getting things done in other cultures?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to tie a lot into the conversation we were just having. So a little bit about my background. So I was in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic, went to grad school to study agricultural development. Anna hired me then. Video off. And then I was in charge of our agroforestry programs across East Africa. So we were working with smallholder farmers to plant trees in 8 different countries, and we planted hundreds of millions of trees at that point. And so those different experiences, and then we moved to Rwanda together when I was managing that program. And it teaches you a few things. So to our previous conversation, you have to be flexible. We come in, I think there's a few things that America does really well. One is like customer service.
Yes.
And then another one is getting things done. Like in the US, we're kind of, the whole culture is set up to like move things along. And that's not how other cultures work. Again, it can be really wonderful to live in a country that doesn't prioritize like business, but it means that things get done differently or much more slowly. And so you have to be flexible. Coming in and saying, well, we need to do this, and this is a great way to make people dislike you and not want to do anything for you. Yeah. And so spending the time to develop personal relationships, being flexible, knowing that if you want to get it done tomorrow, like it's probably not going to happen. So being okay with it getting done in a week is really critical to people liking you and wanting to do things for you, and then also getting things done ultimately. I think understanding why people have the perspectives that they do of like, hey, it's actually not that important, or like, hey, yeah, but we also need to talk to this guy so that it gets done. And so really understanding that. And then I think just showing respect to people and like their own ways is just critical. I definitely was guilty in the beginning of coming in and thinking I was going to change everything because I was from the US and I had education and whatever. And now I'm able to be successful at these things and kind of get people on board because I approach it with respect and understanding and integrating my own view, but also everyone else's, and people who know a lot more about what's going on in that specific context.
Yes, having an open mind, I think, is very crucial when we leave our home countries, especially us as Americans, because I don't know, it's just something about us where I'm not going to say like we always think we're right and we always have like, this is backwards, this doesn't make sense. Like we're always like this needs to be fixed. But sometimes, we have to take a step back and just say, okay, I know this is the way we're used to. However, these people have been doing it this way for hundreds of years and it makes sense to them. So why not just, glance and see, yes, this is the way they do it, but maybe there might be a way to enhance it a little bit, or give suggestions in a, like you said, being respectful and not just trying to come in, like change it 100%.
You can't. It's
yeah.
not your home. They've been doing things, and sometimes I think we're right about, oh, this could be done more efficiently, but it doesn't. Right, like it doesn't matter if I'm right. It's how can we make this happen as efficiently as possible within this context, and that's often through relationships.
Yes, and it's important to develop those relationships. I've been in a lot of forums. I think I'm in too many Facebook groups for different countries. And I see it a lot where us foreigners, I'm not going to label us all as Americans because I don't know who else is in the group that's doing these things, but I see like they come to these countries and they're like demanding things, or they come with their privilege, or they come and they disrupt the flow of how the locals work and navigate and everything. And although I do feel like sometimes there are good intentions that come along with it, but sometimes you can't bring things from the US and pressure it into the local society in a foreign country, because it's not good. It's just like you coming to a friend's house or a stranger's house, bringing all your stuff, saying, hey, I'm moving in and this is what we're going to eat for dinner. And this is how we're going to do things. It doesn't work that way at all. And you'll find yourself having a hard time settling in, making friends, and really having a chance to understand the culture where they're being more inviting because you have come with an open mind and willing to learn and willing to have these conversations, such as, oh, well, how do we navigate this? Because I came and it's not as easy to navigate. And usually 9 times out of 10 from a local's perspective is where you're going to have the best understanding how to go about things versus coming over with the American mindset or your home country's mindset and say, well, this is how it should be done. And I'm going to try this way and only this way because this is the right way. And then you're just going to be met with a big wall and you're not going to get through at all.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think this is a big part of what we were talking about before, right? It's like this emotional adjustment that everyone has to go through. I mean, no matter how used to moving to a new culture you might be, like us after 6 different countries. But there's always going to be that adjustment period also. So like it's definitely expecting not to come in and like think that you know best, but it's also knowing like, oh yeah, it's going to be a little, I'm going to have to feel this out. I'm going to have to figure it out. How is it different? What are the different expectations? All that.
We see this all the time. So Costa Rica, we live in Costa Rica. We have family in Portugal and teams in Portugal, but we live in Costa Rica. And, Costa Rica is famous for Pura Vida, which is basically like, it's cool, man. And the idea, it's just a very relaxed culture.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the times people fall in love with Costa Rica and places like Portugal because it is more laid back, it is more community oriented, and that's wonderful. But what that means is one of the consequences is things happen a little more slowly. And so we find that sometimes people come down because they love the idea of Pura Vida, but then when your bank account's not being opened and you don't really know why, you're like,
yeah,
right? But like you moved here partly for that. And so it's definitely an adjustment, but remembering why you moved to the place and why you love the place. And there's just trade-offs and, pros and cons.
Yes, there's definitely pros and cons. And I think that these conversations like the one we're having need to be had more often, because I feel like there's a lot of other videos out there, YouTube videos and blogs and everything. And I feel like these the people that are doing this content, they're highlighting more of the highs and not the lows. So when people do come to these countries, they're expecting, oh, this person, hyped it up to be this. And then they're met with disappointment because now, like you said, getting a bank account, for my mom, we went to 4 different banks just to get a bank account, even though they said these banks do open up to foreigners, but we were with no, we were not opening up to foreigners. The banks, housing. Yes, it's not like in the US. You have a credit score, you go, you have to put down a month to 4 months deposit. Sometimes I even heard of a year deposit in other countries. There are a lot of things that people don't talk about. Or even though healthcare is great, how do you sign up to get the healthcare? Are there steps?
Yeah.
I had to go to the hospital 3 times to get my account set up because the first 2 times they did not set it up. And the third time I asked a friend in the community who asked her doctor to put my information in to get me an account. So these are these things that are not really talked about as often. So I do appreciate you both sharing about this because it's really important. It's one of the ways that will help you settle in to whatever country that you are going to. So you do have high expectations as far as a better quality of life, safety, peace of mind, but also, you need to be aware that also comes with the price, and the price is patience,
Oftentimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions that are coming through. So let me scroll back up to some of these questions and just to get through at least 3 or 4 questions, and then I'll continue on with your questions. There was a question, Kajish K. Weiss. I'm so sorry, I'm butchering your name. She asked, do you need a work visa to work overseas?
Well, it depends on the type of work. So if we're talking about Portugal, which I assume a lot of people on here might be interested in. So yes, you can get a work visa to come and work in Portugal. You can get that work visa from a Portuguese company. It's called the D1 or the D3, depending on which type of employee you are. But you can also potentially work from Portugal as a remote employee, and you could come in on the digital nomad visa in that case. Now, and that's not to say that's, completely restricted also. You could come into Portugal on the D7 visa, which is a passive income visa. A lot of retirees come into Portugal on that visa, and you could still work in Portugal on that visa as well. It's just, you kind of have to think about which visa is right for you in entering the country from the outset. And then, if it needs to be pegged to work, there are a couple different ways to do it, or maybe it doesn't even have to be tied to your work.
I see a few people in the chat who are interested in Costa Rica, so I can answer that question about Costa Rica as well. So before you have permanent residency, it's going to be very difficult to work for a Costa Rican company. Costa Rica, you would need to be hired by a Costa Rican company first, and you would need to have a special set of skills that they can't find in the local talent pool. So it's very difficult. Maybe if you're a doctor or some kind of scientist. But otherwise, you can work completely online. So we run our business online and there's no problem. And so that's how you would do it.
There's also, of course, a digital nomad visa for Costa Rica that you could come in.
And one of the nice things about Costa Rica, as opposed to Portugal, is you don't pay any taxes in Costa Rica on your foreign earned income. So that's a plus.
Costa Rica is looking kind of nice right now with the no taxes and everything. Portugal, the taxes are crazy. Yes. She also had another question. How far in advance do you need paperwork before moving to another country? Yeah.
So again, this is going to vary a lot depending on the country, but let's talk about maybe Portugal and Costa Rica, since it looks like we have a lot of interest there. So for Portugal, I usually recommend getting started with the visa process in terms of all your paperwork a minimum of 6 months before you want to move. Minimum. Yeah. Because you have to assemble everything, and some of these documents can take some time, especially if you're bringing dependents. Let's say you have to get certain documents apostilled. And then you attend your appointment. And right now, even after attending your appointment, you're going to be waiting for your approval for at least 2 months. And it looks like those approval timelines are going to start getting a little bit longer. So maybe more like 3 months for the rest of this year anyway.
One important thing to note for both countries, you need any documentation that you're going to be using for the process needs to have been issued within the last 6 months. So don't do it too early. And this is one of the things that if you decide to work with us or just want to reach out and book a free consultation, we can help guide you on. So, like your FBI background checks, which you're going to need for both countries, apply for them 5 months out. For
Mhm.
instance, your birth and marriage certificates, apply for them 6 months out, because then it'll take a month to get them, and then it'll take a month to get them apostille. So we can provide guidance on a lot of this. But if you're going to Portugal, getting started on your NIF and your bank account, there's no such thing as too soon.
That's true.
Also, Pinky, I apologize. The StreamYard thing was my fault. I shared the wrong link on our email, so I'm sorry for that.
Yes. Okay. Davy D, I believe he just mentioned that he purchased a house in Setúbal.
Congratulations.
That's amazing.
Setúbal is awesome.
Yes, in wine country, one of the wine regions as well. He also had a question: if denied so if you're denied for your visa, I'm choosing VS. How long till you can reply? VFS. Okay, if you're denied by VFS, how long till you can reapply?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say about this is that if you are initially denied, there is always an appeal process. I think this is important just to understand. That's usually within 10 days. You can send in additional paperwork or anything that the consulate is requesting. And that's definitely the path that, if you can at all get additional proof of why you qualify in, we recommend. And, if you're working with us and if something like that happens, we would be all over that appeal process. If more than 10 days have passed and you weren't able to send any additional paperwork in, then you're going to have to wait several months to reapply. We would have to, I think we'd want to chat with this person specifically about their circumstances to see what would make sense for you and what the reasons were for your denial.
Okay. And this is the last question, but it was already answered, but I'll have you guys answer it again really quick. Is there something called a retirement visa? Someone just told me about it and I've never heard of it before.
So there are retirement visas in certain places. So for Portugal, you're probably thinking about the D7, which is the passive income visa, really. You can qualify for it with a pension, Social Security, also with other types of passive income.
Also, like rental income is a big one. So we help a lot of younger clients get the D7 based on rental income. In Costa Rica, there's a visa called the Pensionado visa, which translates to the pensioner visa. So that is the
retiree visa.
That's the retiree visa. You just have to demonstrate that you make at least $1,000 per month from a fixed income source.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. Keep the questions rolling in. These have all been great. So Zach and Anna, can you both share some of your biggest challenges you faced while relocating hundreds of people to over 20 countries?
Yes. So maybe we can each kind of share a story. There are a lot of challenges, obviously, and we've kind of been talking about some of the background to what some of those might be, so we can get a little more specific about, bureaucracy and logistics and timing and things like this. I don't know how many of the listeners are kind of currently involved in the process of immigration, but if you're looking at Portugal, you may have heard something about IMA being overwhelmed, and with a transition from the old CEF agency that Heather was mentioning to what is currently the Immigration Authority, IMA. There were some problems with people being able to get their IMA appointments, which is the stage 2 of your residency process in Portugal. So with that, we had some clients that they got their visas, they moved to Portugal, they're super excited. And then they were like, oh gosh, I need to go to the second stage to get my, my ID card and like finalize this process. And it has been so challenging to just schedule those appointments. It's been a little bit wild for the first part of this year. So, it's things like this where, Heather, kind of similar to your story. What do? You just, every day you're on the phone all with IMA for hours at a time.
We are on our clients' behalf.
So, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to work your way through that bureaucracy and to get listened to. So, eventually for those clients, we did get them appointments and they did finalize their residencies, and now they're like happily settled in Portugal with their national ID cards, but it can be a struggle sometimes, for sure.
I saw that Action VJ also asked about the drama of getting a Lisbon apartment. So I think that's a
good example.
That's a good example. We help people find apartments, and the rental market there is the Wild West. It's just booming right now, and so no landlord or agent really needs to negotiate, and so they can kind of put in whatever terms they want, but at the same time everything's negotiable. And so what's on the listing. Sometimes the listings are up, but the apartment's not actually available. And so people get excited about it, or we start negotiations and the owner will kind of change the requirements last minute. So it's definitely manageable. We help manage that process, and there's like a lot of really great inventory, but that can be an emotional roller coaster for people, is managing the rental, because having a home is so emotionally important.
So important.
That, people can get very stressed about that.
And I think we should also mention a little bit about just the timing of things, because that tends to be the most complicated part of getting a long-term lease specifically for your visa, which is that, you need a lease before you go to your visa appointment. So you're going to sign a contract, but you're going to go to your visa appointment, and then you have to see if you get approved. And then you have to see, like, when do you get approved? When can I move? Oftentimes your lease is going to start before you hear about your approval, before you can actually move to Portugal. So kind of, what do you do about that? There are a couple of things we can do. One is obviously negotiating with an owner to get your lease to start later. Another is you can always go to Portugal while you're waiting for your visa approval, and then come back to get your visa put in your passport. So there are lots of like strategies and things to kind of get around this tricky area.
I wouldn't want to make it sound like it's only Portugal too. So obviously Costa Rica is another one of our big countries. One of the things that we do is the digital nomad visa, and we have 100% success rates with our clients with their visa applications. But there's on like 40% of them, there's always like barriers that we need to overcome. And so, we've gotten hundreds of people approved for the Costa Rica digital nomad visa, but there was a stretch there where immigration, one of the requirements is that you have a health insurance policy that shows you have up to $50,000 in coverage over your year. For whatever reason, there was about a 3-month stretch where immigration was just telling everybody that their health insurance policy didn't qualify, even though it's the same policy the day before we're qualifying.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. And then clients are saying, what happened? Are we rejected? And so that just required us to go to immigration every day for a long time and kind of make the case. And eventually everyone got through. But, you're going to face, a lot of people are going to face some small hiccup throughout the process. And, this is kind of how it goes.
Yes, it is. It's crazy. Back to what Anna was saying about the AIMA, I just saw in one of the groups where people were like hiring lawyers just to get their appointments. People have been here like 6-7 months and still haven't had an appointment. And what people don't realize is that, yes, you can come into Portugal. You have 2 exits. You can exit one more time after you arrive. But after that, you're stuck in Portugal. I mean, you could probably, go to Spain by bus, but flying out of the EU, like you'll probably have a hard time coming back in. So people were kind of stranded here, not able to travel how they wanted to. Some people go back and forth for work. I have a friend that's a flight attendant, so he has to go back and forth to New York. And it's just like, why this goes back to our original conversation, like, be prepared for the unexpected. Like in America, this would never happen. Maybe there might be a week wait, but just to get an appointment, then once you get your appointment, you're approved, you got your little paper, but now where's your residency card? Your residency card either was not mailed to you, is sitting somewhere in the box, or they didn't process it yet. So having someone, act on your behalf, being your liaison or your advocate is really, really important, because you already have 5,000 other things you need to worry about when moving abroad. Having to navigate right away the local bureaucracy is just not one of the things that I would want for anyone at all. It's time consuming. It could be a nightmare. The language barrier also is a thing, because I feel that some of the terms and phrases that we use in America mean like one thing, but then in other countries, it can mean like a wide range of things. Like, we'll be there this afternoon, but this afternoon means like 6 p.m. at night, which is like the evening for us. So that's really important. And Zach, you had mentioned something too. But the are the apartments. Okay, sorry about that. I think my Wi-Fi switched to the mesh. So yes, the apartments, navigating, finding an apartment, here, it can be very stressful. And when I moved into this flat right here, it took me 6 weeks to find a flat, and although like I had a realtor help me, that's probably one of the only reasons why I was able to get it within 6 weeks. But going back and forth with the owners, it can be great, and it can also be a nightmare too, and having someone work on your behalf is really, really great. And you can ask for things. And like Zach said, that not everything is black and white. You can negotiate things, you can negotiate. I had negotiated a new refrigerator because this one was clearly way too outdated for me to even want to use. You can negotiate a lower rent. I mean, not by like 200 or 300 euros, but it could be by 50 euros, or it could be anything you can negotiate. I think that locals, the people that own these buildings or the flats, they want to get somebody in there as soon as possible, because then they're losing money the longer people are not in their unit. Yes. All right. I'll answer 2 more questions. All right. I don't know what's going on. My mesh keeps disconnecting and connecting to the one in the living room. So Jerry Be Gone mentioned having professionals working with locals on your behalf is priceless. Yes, it really is. It's a great opportunity for you to focus on other things and start to enjoy your new life abroad without having to worry about these crazy things and navigating the bureaucracy. Yvonne Tower.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, the way that
no, go ahead.
You get to move to Portugal or Costa Rica or Spain or Panama. That's like one of the most exciting moments of your life, right? Like you finally get to do it, and what should be a very positive experience quickly can become very stressful and very overwhelming. And by working with somebody like us or anybody else, you just get to be excited because we're going to help you manage and take a lot of that stress off of your plate and just kind of give you the answers and
do all the follow-ups and the negotiation and we hit a road bump. Don't worry it's about okay. Right, let's keep going. Yeah.
Yes, it's great, and I wish I had something like this when I first moved to Portugal. I did 2 applications, and I did a child application. I had to make sure I had all my documentation for my ex-husband, typing up. I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally hoping for the best. Like I came back to the States from Mexico. I did the application. I did my my bank account, when getting a bank account was way easier 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And then I went back to Mexico. I was thinking that my visa would come back in like 3 or 4 months. That thing came back in 10 days. I was like, but I'm not ready to. Yeah. The day I sent it, it was 12 days total. But the day it left the consul in DC to go to go to the embassy, it was 10 days. And I was not ready to leave Mexico. I was just like, well, I guess I'm leaving now because it came back so soon. I wasn't anticipating this, but the amount of stress, it was so stressful because I didn't know what I was doing. I've never applied for a visa before. Not on top of that, the dog and cat, that was even more stressful. And I know you offer assistance with pets too. That was stressful. The 10-day window, and then you have to find a vet that specifically has done this before. Because if not, then you miss the window, and then it was crazy. So if I had to do it all over again, I would hire someone because it was a lot. It was a lot, especially for older people that I don't know what's going on, guys. I'm so sorry. That it's just here. Older people that are wanting. Yeah. It's weird. I don't know why it just keeps going back and forth. For the older generation that want to move abroad, that may not feel as confident doing their package themselves, or would rather just pay someone just for peace of mind, just as long as they can get out of America and go to whatever country. Your service is definitely 100% great for them.
What's so interesting, Heather, is like we actually find that, we have a lot of conversations with a lot of people who are thinking about moving, and some people say like, oh, I don't think I really need help with XYZ. The people who always say like, yep, definitely want help are the people who have moved internationally before.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. The people who have done it themselves before, and they're like, no, not going to do that again.
Yeah, no. I mean, granted, I just did it for my mom twice and I hated every moment of it. And I'm just like, you know what? I still have my little package for when I did mine in a PDF. I'm just gonna like change the name, change the little write-ups. And but if I had to do it a third time, I wouldn't do it. Like no, twice, 4 times is enough. Do not recommend, 0 stars. Go to StartAbroad.
Would not do it again.
It's nice. It is
not to say it's amazing to move abroad, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all here because we are serial expats living in lots of different countries.
Right.
But
the process to get there can be bumpy.
Yes.
Yes, it's not. The process to get here is not fun. The legal side and paperwork side is not fun if you have to tackle it all by yourself.
Yeah.
Let's see. So let's talk about StartAbroad. What inspired you to start your company, and how does it stand out from other relocation services?
It's a lot of what you've just been describing. So Anna is an HR professional relocating hundreds of people all over the globe. We've each moved internationally 6 times. And a lot of what you were just describing is what we had experienced of like, we get to move to this new country. This is so exciting, but it's also becoming very stressful and overwhelming. And we had always looked for a company like ours to help. And what was out there was these big B2B companies that were moving executives and moving government employees, but there wasn't somebody that at that time that could work with us, that we could just pay to like manage it. And we thought we could help a lot of people with it.
And I would say in terms of, how we're different is, well, first, when it comes to customer service, like we are all about more of the, I would say, US style customer service and being very responsive and like knowing that that's what matters the most in terms of, your trust and our relationship, and making sure that you have a good experience with your move is, we're on your side the whole way. The other thing that I think sets us apart is that we can handle all of these things for you in one place. So you don't need to be managing lots of different conversations with so many different processes, from the visa to finding the rental to figuring out how to move your cat on the plane and getting your correct paperwork to what is this certificate that I need to ship my things. We're trying to manage that all for you together. And we have a lot of different partners on the ground, of course, that are providing some of those services more tangibly, I guess, but we are your one point of contact.
We're the general contractors of the move. And so you'll be working with us, and then everything we don't do ourselves, we have vetted partners for. Yeah, we're very hands-on.
Yes,
it's about one-on-one service. It's all about like the personal,
a one-stop shop, but customized. Yes. So I have heard so many amazing things from my community about your customer service, especially Anna. There's so many. You have so many nice things. I mean, they might have mentioned Zach one or a few times, but
it's okay.
Most of it is a lot of Anna in the background providing amazing customer service. But overall, just a lot of positive takeaways from StartAbroad. So I do appreciate you, having this fantastic customer service and helping so many people. Not only get to Portugal, but also to Costa Rica and Panama. And customer service outside the US looks way different in many ways, but I'm glad that you're keeping up the American tradition of good customer service.
We strive to be extremely transparent, especially with things like pricing. And you have a lot of legal firms and some countries that they sign you for one fee and then they say, oh, and now you owe us this fee.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes people will decide not to work with us, we want to be very upfront and transparent with everything.
Yes, transparency is key, and it also builds a level of trust and building foundation. And I think there are a lot of other companies out there, like you said, they say, let's just say $9.99 for this, and you get all this, but then when you sign up or you get into a contract with them, they're just like, oh, by the way, you need to add this on or this on. And so now what you're thinking is maybe a $1,200 investment. Now it's like $2,000. So that's one thing that I've liked about you guys since, I guess, almost 2 years now. Nothing has changed. Even your website, it's very like straightforward. This is what it is. This is what you get. Consultation at the bottom. So I really do appreciate that. And there's no guessing. Like when I go to the website, StartAbroad.com, there's no guessing. There's like, okay, I see these are the packages. This is what's included. This is a la carte. Or if you just want this particular service, it's that. There's nothing that I have noticed that has been in the gray area or that will make me question, well, what is this? Or what all is included in this package? So shout out to whoever did your website.
Yeah, thanks. And I think last is, I mean, we've just done it ourselves. So we are expats. We've moved a lot. Anna's moved hundreds of people all over. Through this business, we moved hundreds of people. And so we know what you're going through.
Yeah.
Yes, good. So how did you guys tailor your services to meet the unique needs of clients moving to Portugal, Costa Rica, and Panama?
It's a great question. What we've realized through doing this is no two moves are the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's no right answer. And so what we do is the very first thing that we're going to do with you once you've signed up for one of our bundles is to get on a 45-minute kickoff call so we can really understand you and your situation. Then what we do is we lay out your options. So for every single component of your move, visa, pet relocation, what you're going to do about transportation, where you want to live, you're going to have multiple options, right? Like there's not just one way to do it. And so what we want to do is help you understand your options and then choose the right one for you and your situation, and then execute at a very high level on it.
So a lot of it is usually about kind of there's conversations or like an education piece where you're saying, okay, this is what I want. And then maybe I'll say, okay, great. Based on what you want, it sounds like this or this or this could make sense. What do you think? And then maybe we go back and forth and you ask some questions and we make a decision together, like what's right for me. So in that respect, a lot of it is like very personalized. And then obviously, from what you are talking about with all the different countries, and then every country is very different too. So, the range of options looks very different for each country.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that's really good. That is not, what works here in Portugal is across the board going to work here in Panama and Costa Rica. So it's really good that it's tailored to location specific. It might even be region specific too. Absolutely. As well.
I mean, Costa Rica and Panama are a lot more similar than, to Portugal
and Spain.
Portugal and Spain are a lot more similar. Yeah.
Those old world bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Tell me about it. So what advice would you have for someone considering a move to one of these countries?
So many things. Okay, so our first piece of advice is always to visit. If you can, it really makes sense to go take a trip. We talk a lot about scouting trips. I think a lot of people give that advice, but it's really good advice. If you can, take a trip to the place where you think you might want to live, just to make sure it feels right. It's hard to substitute anything for that. So like going in person and just like feeling a place. And if you can also, take off the vacation glasses and go to the market, go visit a school where your kid might go to school, go see where you might walk your dog, understand more what it's going to look like day to day.
To actually live. Yeah. I guess, I don't know that you'd be surprised, but a lot of people vacation to the Algarve or to the beach in Costa Rica for a week and they say, I want this. But if you were to buy a house there and go live there, it's not the same as your 7-day vacation. It's still life. And it's life, hopefully, that has a higher baseline than the place that you left, but it's still day to day, you've got to take care of things. And so really understanding what that's going to look like before you make the big emotional and financial investment to move abroad. I would also just say be flexible, and I would say seek out help. There's so many good resources. I think the Black in Portugal community is a really wonderful resource. I think there's a lot of really good expat Facebook groups. There's a lot of really great information online. And then there's, people like us that do free consultations and help you think through your options. At the same time, there's a lot of bad information online, and there's not everybody who pops up on a Facebook group that says, I can help you, has your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So cross-checking, getting recommendations from friends or expat groups is critical. And the last thing I'd say is you can do it. There's a lot of people who really could benefit from a move abroad that just think, oh, maybe I can't for X reason and X reason. But I think we're here to say that you absolutely can. And it's just kind of understanding what the barriers are and how to overcome them.
And then making your plan.
And starting early.
Yes, I would like to add to some of the wonderful suggestions and advice that you gave.
Yeah.
First and foremost, one of my favorite military terms, trust but verify. Trust the information on the internet. However, make sure you verify that information because, like Zach said, it's not always the best interest at heart. There are people that have nothing better to do with their lives than get on the internet, be keyboard warriors, and spread misinformation. Or they could be salty about something that happened to them and then just, spread false information. Also connect with expat groups. There are so many expat groups. I know a lot of people I have come across, sometimes it's the older generation that they're not on Facebook, they're not on social media. But I feel like that's one of the ways that is best to connect with other people. They even have groups that are like for 50 plus, 60 plus, location specific. There are groups out there for you. Even if you don't want to get on there to post pictures or anything like that, at least have a Facebook account and engage and meet someone. Even if you say, hey, I'm arriving in September, anyone else available to meet up for a coffee or anything, like these are ways that you can meet someone that's on the ground, that you can get a perspective as well. And they might be able to introduce you to someone when you come to visit as well. Also, people always sleep on Reddit. Reddit has some really great feeds and forums. Yeah, I'm just like a Reddit fan because it's a great way for you to still read. I'm not saying go out and meet someone off Reddit, but as far as information, I do feel like Reddit does a good job at moderating all their threads. So anything that may not fall in line with their bylaws or their community, they delete it. And people that are overall in charge of that thread, they're really good at going through, picking out and deleting stuff as well. So Reddit's a good one. Facebook, if you're not on Facebook, there are plenty of bloggers out there that host like summits and everything. So even if you signed up for their email listing as well and attend one of their in-person events, I think that's also a great way for you to get out and meet people. As far as visiting, I highly suggest visiting your country. I think that it is an investment worth making. Maybe put aside the money, maybe look to see when is the best time to fly out there, maybe when they have cheaper flights or whatever the case may be. And I do suggest if you're able to stay more than a week, that will be great. I know that's not, feasible for everyone, but do not stay in the touristy places. Connect with the locals, connect with someone on the ground and say, hey, where do people shop at? Let me go to the local mercado. Let me see what they have in there as far as hair products or cooking products that I'm used to. There's so many different things. Visiting schools is also really important. I find that people get stuck on moving to an area where their kid goes to school, but then they end up not staying at that school. Now they're just stuck in an area, because of the school. But look to see what other schools are out there. See if there's just like a midway point, or a centralized location. Like, okay, if my daughter doesn't do well in this school or it's not a fix for her, what other schools are in the vicinity, instead of this is the only school that's out there. And now I'm stuck driving 45 minutes every day to take my kid to school. So there are a lot of things to consider. And this is why Facebook groups and forums and other YouTube videos as well can be very helpful when figuring out what area do I want to live in, what type of community do I want, what do I want in my day-to-day life that makes sense for me to settle in the best way I can.
And
Absolutely.
if I can add one little tiny recommendation,
Yes.
for YouTube specifically. So we have this conversation with our clients all the time. Maybe they've gone to Portugal and they're like, yes, I love Portugal. I definitely want to move, but I still need help deciding like the neighborhood or the specific town. Like I want to live outside of Lisbon, but I don't know where exactly, things like this. We have those conversations a lot, and we like talk people through their options and send them packets of information about each place. But you can also do a lot of that yourself. One of the resources that I find the most useful to share with people are these YouTube videos that are like walking tours of the neighborhoods, because they really can give you a sense of like, if I was wandering the streets of this neighborhood, what would I encounter? So just like another little tip, put it on maybe 2 times speed, because they're long videos usually, and check out what that place looks like.
That is a great tip. I know people are always asking, what is the best neighborhood, especially for Portugal or Lisbon per se. And I'm just like, this isn't like moving to the US and you're just like, what's the best neighborhood? And you're just like, Scottsdale is the best neighborhood. No, you have to be like specific. Do you want hills? Do you want greenery? Do you want to be close to the water? Do you want all these markets? There's like a lot of demographics that grow into it that need to be within your question, because some people will say Baixo Chiado is the best neighborhood or Lapa is the best neighborhood. But then you move there and it's just like, Lapa doesn't have a metro station. It's just a train station. And yeah, so there's a lot of things that really go into it. And that's why it's important to really get in these Facebook groups or forums or newsletters or just going to summits and being able to ask these questions or listen to other people's stories, just so you get a better idea as well. And also book your consultation with StartAbroad, because they are able to give you this information, give you more insights. And because they've worked with so many people and have these insights, and I'm pretty sure they have like a backlog of questions that they have been asked, whether they're repeat, new, or unique. They Anna and Zach are the ones that are going to be able to best guide you if you're not able to guide yourself, or you're unsure how or what to ask when you are looking into your possible new country.
Quick shout out to Phyllis too, who I spoke to in May 2023, chose Ecuador. If you're looking at the D7, Phyllis, please just shoot me an email, Zach, Z-A-C-H, @startabroad.com. Happy to connect on a call or provide more information.
Yes. Okay, there's a few more questions I'm going to go through. I know we're over our time, so hopefully you don't mind staying on for a little bit longer. Okay, perfect. So we are scrolling down to Yvonne Tower. She asks, do you pay taxes on disability or retirement income in Costa Rica?
Okay, so if you're getting that income from a foreign source, so let's say like if you're from the United States and you're getting Social Security, you don't pay Costa Rican taxes on that.
You pay U.S. tax.
Yeah.
The U.S. is one of the only countries in the world that charges you taxes based on nationality and not location. So regardless of where you live, you have to file in the U.S. Now, for Portugal, for instance, there's a tax treaty, so you're not going to be double taxed, but you need to file in Portugal and the U.S.
But in Costa Rica, no taxes on foreign sourced income. So no Costa Rican tax on that.
Yes. And going down, shout out to Abel. Abel has done a great job maintaining the Black in Portugal website. He has been updating things. And if you're looking for a web developer, shout out to Abel. He is amazing and does everything. So thank you, Abel, for joining in. Pinky says they have their VFS appointment for Portugal next week on Friday. Congratulations.
That's great.
That is so exciting. I'm wishing you the best of luck with your appointment. Go in there, feel confident, be organized, and it would just be the waiting game, unfortunately. So prepare to get your bags packed.
Yeah.
Get there 15 minutes early. Make sure you have I'm not sure where you're going, but your money order, your cashier's check if you're going in the US anywhere other than New York. Yeah.
Yes. Debbie Diver said AIMA is so overwhelmed in Portugal. I showed up for the July 1st appointment that was in my D7 visa and was turned away because only one person came to work that day, rescheduled for September 5th. Welcome to Portugal.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
At least they rescheduled for September 5th. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that is not ideal that you probably want that appointment that far out, but this is Portugal. The local Portuguese people strike randomly. The trains are on strike. The buses on strike. The metro's on strike. The workers are on strike. I know they just were on strike for overtime. They were working a lot of overtime, but then working paid for overtime. This is just things that just make zero sense for us Americans, but here it's just very common. So please, I hope that you are able to get your appointment. And also, if that appointment gets canceled again, there's always a complaint book that you can complain in. It's online. And they do take the complaints very seriously. I've had to do 2 complaints on companies here, and I was contacted via phone and contacted via mailbox. So just know that that is an option in Portugal. If you have any complaints or you feel like you were mistreated or anything of a negative light, you are allowed to file a complaint against them. And every business is required to have a complaint book. And AIMA definitely has a long log of complaints.
Yes. And maybe just to mention one thing about that strike, because we've also been getting a lot of questions about that. So it is a strike that is, going to be ongoing for the rest of the year, but it is only on overtime and it is optional for employees. So the idea wouldn't be that people would be striking entirely and not working. It's just that they would be refusing to work overtime hours.
Yeah.
And not all employees are participating either, but we do expect it might slow some things down for the rest of the year.
Yes. Also, one last thing about the strike. The employees at the airport go on strike too. So
yes.
Yeah.
sometimes the customs line could be very well. I stayed in the customs line for 2.5 hours once because they were on strike. And Portugal, right? This is so expect the unexpected and have patience and always have a snack in your bag.
Yes.
Action VJ or Pinky. Okay, I think she was they were replying to someone else. Michelle Cooper is asking, can you rent a room from someone while waiting, or does it have to be an apartment?
So you can, what you basically need, the important thing about this process is that for your second stage of your application process through IMA, you just need to have a lease that's registered with the tax authority. So if that person has the ability, whoever is renting the apartment has the ability to sublet and give you a lease, then that'll be fine. It kind of just depends on the lease document that you're signing, essentially.
Yes.
There's just another question from Pinky about her VFS appointment.
Okay. Money order. You've already, yes. So Pinky, you've already paid for the VFS fees at San Francisco, but what you haven't paid yet is the Portuguese government fees. So that's the payment that you have to make actually in your appointment. And for that, you have to bring a cashier's check or a money order made out in this specific amount for the month. It changes every month. For August, it's $98.01 US dollars. Yeah. So if you just get that and bring it in with your appointment, you'll be fine. We recommend leaving the recipient blank until you get there because it can change.
Yes. And 2 things on that. There is a Wells Fargo within walking distance of San Francisco of that VFS. And also, please, please, please do not make the same mistake that my mom did, which wasn't a mistake. It's on VFS's part. Before you leave, please make sure on your receipt you have a reference number. Make sure they circle the reference number. My mom went in January, and she paid. She had the form to send her passport in, everything. And she did not get a reference number. She never got an email saying that. They received her application and it was sent off. And I ended up making her an appointment 6 months later because going back and forth with VFS and it was just a mess. So made an appointment. They lost her. They lost her her application, the whole application. Even though I said this is the person that helped her. This is literally copies of everything that was given. So made her an appointment in DC. DC, they actually circled the reference number on there, got an email maybe like 2 hours later, and then like a month later, she was approved through the DC office. So if you're going to San Francisco, please make sure you have a reference number. And it's not the same number as the when you make the appointment. That reference number is not the same as the tracking number for your visa. So good luck, Pinky, on Monday. I hear if you have Ace, I hear amazing things about him. So best of luck to you. Okay, let me go back up. There was another question. Michelle, we answered her question. Okay. Olivera Maria Pet.
Oliver is a client as well.
Ask, have you learned Portuguese or Spanish for Costa Rica? How challenging has the language barrier been for you?
Yeah, so we both speak fluent Spanish. I was in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic and lived there for 4 years. I got rusty when we were living in East Africa, but we've picked it back up here. Portuguese, we speak very basic Portuguese, but we have Portuguese team members in Portugal that obviously it's their native language.
How challenging has the language barrier been for us? I don't know. To be honest, because we work through a network of Portuguese partners and we're both fluent in Spanish, it hasn't been that challenging. But I know that that's not typical.
I think it is extremely, for our work in Costa Rica and Panama, speaking Spanish has been invaluable.
Yes.
And I think just for people's experiences for when you move abroad, having some even basic attempts at speaking the local language is going to really enrich your experience. You don't need to be fluent. I think often it's just demonstrating to locals that you're trying and can say hello goes a really long way, and it's going to make your experience a lot more positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to share a funny story. I just heard a story the other day from someone who, I think he was going in to exchange his driver's license in Portugal, which is another process. And initially, I guess the woman at IMT where you do this process didn't really want to talk to him and said something like, well, you should speak Portuguese. And he said, he knew enough Portuguese to say, I'm learning, but I currently sound like I'm like a 3-year-old when I speak Portuguese. And she laughed and laughed and then spoke great English. So sometimes it's just about making a little bit of an attempt.
I wouldn't say my Spanish is the best, but I think having a joke about it is really good kind of advice. So in Spanish, I'll say some basic reading and people will be like, oh, wow, you speak Spanish. And I'm like, when I've been drinking a few beers, I speak great and I dance.
Perfect Spanish. Yeah.
And they love it. And then we're buds. And I think having a little bit of a sense of humor about it and speaking a very basic amount just goes a long way.
Yes. And also to add, there are 2 different types of Portuguese. There is Brazilian Portuguese and there's European Portuguese. It sounds similar, yet totally different. I love the way Brazilians speak Portuguese. It's more like flowy, like a song, it's like a love letter. And then there's European Portuguese, which, there's European Portuguese. I'll just put it that way. And Duolingo does not teach European Portuguese. It teaches Brazilian Portuguese. But if you Google or on TikTok or Instagram Brazilian Portuguese versus European Portuguese, then you will understand why the Brazilian one is so nice and then the Portuguese one is just European. Yeah. Keep going. Okay. Not Nina Simone. N. Simmons wrote, if my son lives in Germany now, would it be easier to get residency there and then move to Portugal?
Maybe. It's hard for me to say without knowing a little bit more about your situation, but it will depend on Germany's rules and if there are residency requirements for you to live physically in Germany for a certain period of time before you move within the EU. So I'd look into that specifically.
Yes.
Heather, just a quick note. We have a client call coming up.
Oh, okay. Okay. I will let me ask you the 2 more questions. And then I believe all of these questions will be on the YouTube channel. I don't know if you can go back and answer them. Yeah. And sorry for going over an hour. The conversation was so good. So lastly, what are your future plans for StartAbroad? And are there any new services or destinations you guys are excited about?
Yes. Big plans. So We over the course of this year, we're going to roll out a program in Spain. There's a lot of interest in Spain, especially with the changes to the NHR in Portugal. So we're currently kind of developing that program, and we are taking on beta clients. So people who are willing to work with us and help us develop the program, basically we would just charge you cost. So if you are interested in Spain, that's something we're starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just continuing to kind of smooth out processes for people, put in place more like automations within our systems. We're not losing anytime soon, like one-on-one connection and calls with folks, but hopefully our clients who are signing up now will get even better customer service moving forward.
We're putting in place a client portal, which we're really excited about, which hopefully should just make the customer experience even better. So there's going to be one place where all of your information will be stored.
Very user-friendly.
There's hopefully more like dynamic like tools and materials. And so we're going to be rolling that out slowly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. And thank you so much for going over the time, 20 minutes. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But there are several ways that everyone watching or will be watching can reach out to you. Can you tell everyone how to contact you, the best ways?
Yeah, of course. So you can sign up for a free consultation. We do 15-minute consultations. On our website, just go to www.startabroad.com, and there's a button at the top in the menu. You can sign up for a consultation that way. If you want to get in touch with us directly via email, you can also just email us at info@startabroad.com.
We also have a newsletter. So if you're a little earlier in the move process and just want to be kind of kept in the loop, go to our website, www.startabroad.com, and then scroll down and you'll see an option to sign up for a newsletter. And you can just reach out at any time, and we would love to connect with you.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much. I think what you've done is just really wonderful resource for a lot of people. We've really enjoyed being your friend and working and collaborating together over the past few years. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
And we also just find it incredible. The Black in Portugal community is like so helpful and supportive and full of incredible information.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And thank you guys so much for everything. And I'm going to talk to you offline about Spain. I'll send you an email, but also in the description of this YouTube video, all the information to contact Zach and Anna at StartAbroad are listed. Also, if you're interested in Portugal, I do have a Black in Portugal discount as well, which is also listed in the description. So with that being said, everyone answers questions that were not answered. Zach and Anna will go back in and answer the question when they're able to. But if you have any questions for me, definitely send me an email at heather@blackinportugal.com, and we are going to hop off this live. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you guys.
Heather.
And thank you everyone for joining.
Alrighty, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.